So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session, which is post-lunch. Frankly, post-lunch sessions are a bit heavy and a bit sleepy. But the topic that we are trying to cover, that is people, profit, and sustainability, is actually giving sleepless night to the entire panel that we have on the forum today. You know, if you look at it from a sustainability perspective, India has been a key contributor to the United Nations Sustainability Development Program. We being the signatories to those programs, we would be actually getting audited by the International Board of United Nations in terms of how as a country we are performing on sustainability. Frankly, if you look at the current status, believe me, we are in the right shape. We have got a score of 60 out of 100. And if I look at it in an overall ranking, we are 121 out of 192 nations that are participating in this initiative. Broadly, a lot of distance to cover. And in fact, Indian government is taking a lot of initiatives on that front. We have launched our own Sustainability Development Index, where each and every union, territory, and state is being tracked in terms of the 17 goals that the United Nations has defined. Startling results, in FY 2021, we had only 10 states which were front runners. This has actually changed to 22 states in FY 21-22. So a lot of states are taking a lot of initiatives on the sustainability front. And believe me, this is actually advisable for them as well from an independent investment perspectives as well. In May 2021, SEBI actually came with a broad guidelines called the Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. Frankly, initially, this was supposed to be a part of the annual report, and it's still going to get published with the annual report of all the companies. But believe me, annual report was always thought to be a finance prerogative, but with the BRSR coming in, there is going to be a lot of responsibility on each and every department of the company, in terms of reporting back to the stakeholders. As of now, the first 1,000 companies by market capitalizations are supposed to report on those sustainability parameters, but the report is pretty exhaustive. It can cover from your customer experience, it can cover your cybersecurity experience, your impact on the society, your impact of your products on the society. So a lot of reporting that needs to get done from a BRSR perspective. And every department within the company has to get involved. Frankly, all of us are very comfortable with the ESG word, frankly, but it's no longer a buzzword. If I look at the research that has been coming out, nearly 90% of the investments that are going to be made by the private equities in the next 5 years are going to be ESG focused. So companies with a very strong ESG background definitely will get a higher funding from an overall perspective. You look at the post 2 years of the pandemic, the entire business models are changing now. We had e-commerce coming up very strongly. Now the new kid in the block, that is the quick commerce. But somewhere, basis our research, there have been concerns that are coming out from those business models as well. Frankly, on two factors, a lot of transportation costs resulting in carbon emission and a lot of packing materials being used. And the Indian consumer mindset is changing very drastically. Nearly 82% of the Indian customers are actually looking at how is the product sustainable? What is going to be the impact of their product being used on the nature and the environment? So the customer is getting a bit knowledgeable about it. And also nearly 62% of the consumers are more worried about where the product is made. So definitely there is a chance for the Made in India concept as well. Indian retail industry is actually on the cusp of disruptions now. With all these changes happening, the customers are expecting a lot of focus on diversity, ethical sourcing, entire supply chain, how the entire process works from an impact perspective on the ground itself. So I have a very strong panel who are coming with diverse backgrounds, and obviously they are doing their own bits on sustainability. And we would be very privileged to hear in terms of what has been their experience, what has been their challenges which they are facing, and in terms of what are the things that they are doing to make the country a better place to live in. So with that, I'll start with my first panelist, Sanjeev. You are being covering from a being human perspective. If I look at some of the statistics, from a UN perspective, the apparel and the textile industry is creating a lot of pollution, right from the microplastics that are going to get used. We waste about nearly $100 billion of clothes every year, which are actually not utilized. Also, if I look at it a water consumption perspective, nearly 215 trillion liters of water is actually used by the textile industry. So if I look at it from your perspective, being a brand as, being human, what are the various initiatives that you are doing to make sure that the impact on the planet is minimal?
Thanks, yeah. Thanks for that question because, the kind of brand name that we carry, being human, it becomes a very responsible name to carry on your shoulders. And as you rightly said, that being human is not about just, the CSR charitable activities that we do, but it also means how are we giving back to the environment. So, okay, just let me first set the context here. See, everybody talks about sustainability today. You gave some figures out there, and you spoke about how investors are going to, look at investments coming in for companies who are following the rules that have been laid down by the UN. However, in today's date, I think from a brand perspective, a lot of brands are talking about sustainability. They are talking about, how do you get sustainable fibers in place? How do you produce sustainable product? But what has not changed is, please understand that sustainability comes at a cost. And if I put that cost into my garments, then will the consumers buy it? Now, there is definitely a there's a shift of, focus, and this we are actually seeing massively coming from the Gen Z. The Gen Z, population of India, to be very specific, is very focused towards what am I buying? Am I buying something which is giving back to Earth in some way or the other? So just to say that, we also manufacture denims which are made out of PET bottles. We also use absolute, enzyme washes. We don't use water to the minimal level for our denim washes because, people who are from the apparel industry will understand that for denim washes, there's a humongous amount of water which was being used. But most of the brands have shifted there. When it comes to, sustainable shirts, now I'll give you a small example. I can give you a beautiful shirt costing about 2,500 rupees, but the moment I sign up with ethical sourcing, right cotton, tracing it back to the, to the fields where it's coming from, the shirt price goes to 3,500. Because there's a whole lot of logistics which are involved there, a whole lot of special manufacturing plants who are mandated by these companies. So technically, we are moving, but we are moving at a very slow pace. That's what's happening today. The other way to look at it is, what are we doing in terms of packaging, in terms of recycled bags, so one way to look at it is that, the number of stores that we are opening in India today, most of the stores are exposed to a large amount of non-sustainable material. Now, if you look at e-commerce, the entire brick and mortar piece gets cut out, except for people who want to open experience stores. So, therefore, how we foresee is a large part, not that brick and mortar retail will shut down, but a large part of the business will move. And one of the reasons would be that there is this sustainability movement where I want to spend less on non-sustainable material. I'd rather be online and do my business and put the monies there.
Sure.
Right? So that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is that today, I really don't know how many brands present here can afford a sustainable store. Now, as being human, all our stores, we use about 40%, 45%. That is, actually, trust me, I can't go beyond it because then I don't know how to hang my products. But wherever possible, we use recycled material. Just to give you a small example, today afternoon I was having a discussion with a company which has come for the same conference, which does recycled rubber flip-flops. Now, we are saying, great, we'll tie up with you. Let's go ahead. The price might be 100 rupees or 200 rupees higher, or maybe 500 rupees higher. So there are all these, there are many slips between the cup and the lip here. But the way that the entire industry is moving, trust me, Gen Z will force you to be sustainable, else they won't buy you.
Sure.
We are opening up stores in Canada. We are opening up stores in GCC. We are opening up stores, in neighboring countries. But everywhere, more than India, the people who are living abroad are very, very conscious about this. And they are looking at a brand, they are looking at brands with a purpose. And one of the purposes, are you sustainable? What are you doing exactly? You know, what kind of ethical sourcing are you doing? Today, every single factory from where I source, whether it's in Bangladesh or Vietnam or Sri Lanka or for that matter, Tirupur, there is a complete audit which happens in terms of sourcing from that factory. You know, so there are those charters, there are those checklists which are checked and signed off. So yes, we are there, but you know, it's nice to discuss it on this forum about sustainability. But as we go back to our regular business from tomorrow, I think one must also understand that P&Ls matter a lot to our principles. And sustainability is good, but I'm sure it has to move slowly and steadily towards that. So that is where it is right now, until and unless there is a mandate from the government on a clear direction to move towards this, and also subsidies and benefits have to be given towards brands who are taking this call. Because business comes at a cost. And if that cost is reduced, then I don't think anybody sitting here in this forum who is into brick and mortar or into apparel would refuse to be sustainable. I mean, that's all what we want, yeah.
So when you're just taking a cue, I think you're definitely looking at some government incentives or some government benefits to make your products more sustainable.
Yeah.
Sure. And Sanjeev, in just 1 minute, in terms of the fast fashion, you know, do you think, you know, with all the, you know, influencers that are coming in, you know, on all the platforms, do you think fast fashion, how do we make fast fashion a bit slow in India? In fact, I would put it very simply.
Sorry, I didn't get the last piece.
I said, how would we make the fast fashion a bit slow in India? Because there is fast fashion that's picking up really fast.
Well, see, the definition of fast fashion is, you know, everybody talks about this thing called fast fashion. So what is fast fashion? Fast fashion is something which is trending right now. There are brands who launch it. So how we divide it is very clear. We have fashion and then we have fashion core. So fashion core is something that you wear throughout and it's got nothing. And then you have the fast fashion which comes at a, you know, at a certain risk as well. Because if it doesn't work for brands when you talk about fast fashion. And therefore, I don't think we should slow it down. Because today, the way that we all are exposed, and specifically the Gen Z is exposed to international trends and international flavors of fashion, fast fashion is here to stay. And that's how every season you'll be seeing, you know, designs changing, fits changing, you know, different kind of eclectic designs coming in. So I think it's here to stay, and I think we should allow that because India should change. We shouldn't slow it down. I mean. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Sanjeev. Mohit, coming to you, you know, from a Baskin Robbins perspective, you know, some startling figures, you know, India is the diabetes capital of the world. You know, every 6th diabetic is actually coming from India. You know, you are into a dessert segment, you know, how as a brand you are becoming more responsible looking at the startling facts that we have from a diabetes perspective.
Absolutely right that India is the emerging diabetic capital of the world, and obviously there is a humongous number of people who are suffering. But at the same time, what one must remember is that the category that we are in, which is ice creams, is essentially an indulgence category. It's a category which people like to engage with, celebrate with, feel happy about, etc. And tinkering with your core proposition, which is indulgence, we have seen around the world, you know, tinkering with your core brand proposition is perhaps a little bit of a risky affair. But having said this, we do recognize the fact that there is a need for maybe a new brand that can cater to people who are far more conscious about what they eat, what they take in, you know, whether it's lower sugar, whether it's lower calories, whether it's lower fat, whether it's lactose free or high protein, and so on and so forth. So there are emerging lifestyles, and we do recognize that. Taking both these issues into account, we don't want to tinker with the mother brand because it stands for something. We have introduced a completely new brand in the market. The brand is called the Brooklyn Creamery. It's been around now for the last 2 years, and today it commands the lion's share of the emerging ice cream segment in the country. So it provides low calorie, vegan, high protein, keto friendly products, etc. And any kind of alternate lifestyle that a consumer may have chosen, products are available for that kind of a lifestyle. What else are we doing within Baskin Robbins, the brand? Yes, we do have a limited range of vegan products and we do have a limited range of low sugar products, but the core brand proposition has not been touched.
Okay. And as a part of your sourcing, how are you helping the Indian farmers? You do a lot of milk sourcing, you do a lot of procurement. How are you helping the Indian farmers as well?
And you're asking from a sustainability
Sustainability.
perspective? Naveen, if I have to answer that question, I would actually go back to where Sanjeev started and where Sanjeev ended. That as a business, if you ask me, was this top of our mind, let's say a couple of years ago, the answer is no. If the question is, are our consumers seeking products that are environmentally friendlier? I would completely disagree with the figures that you quoted. You quoted figures saying 82% of customers today are seeking products that are, environmentally friendly. Our experience does not say so.
Sure.
Not so far. Will it remain the same? The answer is no, it will not remain the same. And we do recognize the fact that it's going to change. Because we do work with a lot of young customers. We do cater to a lot of young customers. And we do see a trend emerging. But it's still a very, very small and nascent trend. It's not become mainstream yet. Having said this, there are two parts to it. The first part is, what do we do, in our production? How do we make our products? Are we conscious during that stage? What do we do in our sourcing? Are we conscious? And then what do we do in the retailing? Are we conscious there? And I would segregate my response in all the three stages. So when it comes to production, we are very, very conscious of the resources that we use. Whether it's water, whether it's electricity, all the water that we use and all the effluent that is generated is again reused, recycled back into the plant. So there is nothing really getting wasted. So extremely sustainable in that sense. The kind of power that we are using solar power, we are using wind power to augment the electricity that we use. So as sustainable as we can be. In our sourcing, in our current business model, we do not source directly from farmers. But having said this, we do source responsibly. We do ensure that we work with dairies that follow certain kinds of practices. So for example, are they working directly with farmers? Are they providing loans to farmers? Are they taking care of the animals, for instance? So we choose our dairies very carefully, even if we have to pay a slightly higher price for the milk that we source. So that's how it goes. And then, of course, in the retailing, and there's a completely different set of practices which we can possibly talk about later.
Sure. Thanks, Mohit. So, Amit, coming to you, you deal with a lot of organic and sustainable products in your stores. What, according to you, the retailers can do to bring in or to inspire more trust in the organic and sustainable products?
Sure. So, firstly, I think as retailers, we tend to look at everything from a consumer's angle, which is the right way to look at it. The best thing that a consumer always looks out for when he's indulging in a purchasing decision is the value that it gets to him. Any organic or any sustainable product can actually provide value in three ways possibly. One is it's only limited to the planet per se, and there is nothing specific for the consumer. Second, there is value which is inherent in the nutritional value or the taste or the freshness of the product. And third, if it's a combination of the two together. Our experience leading a grocery chain is slightly different from, let's say, where the buying decision is more indulgent in a fashion category. If the product is only giving value to the planet, then in my opinion, it's only adding to the tie-break decision. If there are two products and both have the same value attributes, one is providing more sustainable benefits to the planet, the consumer may pick it up if they happen to be very, very well informed, right? Otherwise, it's led by the value that gets added to the consumer itself. That is where I think there are about four parameters or four aspects that we could look at in terms of making the consumer more and more aware in terms of aiding their purchasing decision. The first is the easier bet, which is the back panel. wherein we can work with companies together and identify ways and means of making it more and more informative. The back panel in today's day and age and primarily post the pandemic is now perhaps more important than the front panel. Right? Secondly, what we've started to do at La Marche, given we target the consumer base, which is more premium and more informed, is to make them more educated with the decisions that they're taking by adding QR codes about the products on our shelves so that they are able to get more and more details. Right? Thirdly, the example that I'd like to quote here is that one of our group products or brands as an example is Nature's Miracle, which is into hydroponics, which is the more sustainable form of farming, even more than organic. Right? Now, what happens in products like these, as both Sanjeev and Mohit were mentioning, that they turn out to be more premium products, right? Now, how do we make the consumer buy those premium products? In hydroponics farming, as an example, the products are really, basic essentials like cucumbers or tomatoes. And I'm sure the gathering here, along with all of us, would agree that a consumer will not want to pay premium on cucumbers, tomatoes, but is willing to pay that premium on salads, right? Which is a prepared commodity that he's having, and it then becomes a slightly more indulgent purchase. So we did just that, which is, at La Marche, we call it as bringing the product experience to life. We do it for a lot of other products as well. So now if you put the hydroponic produce in the salad and make the consumers try it, and then they realize the difference in terms of freshness, taste, nutritional values, etc. That is where the sales actually picks up. And hydroponics as a category in La Marche is one of the highest contributing categories now, which will not be something which any other supermarket can probably talk about. Fourthly, I think from a tech standpoint, how do we make it more sustainable in the long term is something that we'll all have to work towards. In our product category, which is groceries or the everyday essentials, tech can play a part because there are techniques like spectroscopy in AI which can help us identify to some extent if one product is more nutritional than the others. If we are able to bring that alive in front of the consumers as to why certain products are better off than the others, and hence there is a price premium attached to them, then the consumers will be more than willing to pay. Is it a pilot which is working right now? Yes, but are the results 100% no? So we'll obviously have to work with the tech partners to be able to fine tune that in the future.
So I think we'll have to still wait for some time to see the actual results in terms of whether the consumer is willing to pay that premium for the organic product.
So they are paying that premium if the product experience is brought to life. If you just place it on the shelf and say that it's organic and you might have to pay extra, only a very small percentage will go ahead with that. But like the hydroponics example that I quoted, if they've tried out the product and they realize that it is good, then they'll actually end up paying. But there, what is working is not the fact that it is a sustainable product, but sustainability is adding to the value credentials of the product.
Sure. Thanks, Amit. Shruti, coming to you, if I look at it from a cosmetic industry perspective, there are about 120 billion units of packaging every year, which is not recyclable. And if I look at some statistics, by 2050, there would be about 12,000 metric tons of plastic waste that would actually go into landfills. At Body Shop in India, what has been your experience, from a packaging perspective? Because in India, we don't have a structured program or a structured government guidelines in terms of, how the packaging has to work. So what are the various initiatives that Body Shop team is taking account in terms of making sure that the ecosystem works effectively as well?
Okay, thanks, Naveen. So first of all, I'd like to just start by saying that, the eco-consciousness, what we call sustainability, is actually very, very deeply entrenched into the fabric of the Body Shop, and it was founded 45 years ago. So that's what we are, right? So when we started off, our entire business was on people bringing their empty bottles and filling up the products there. So fast forward to today, we are a B Corp company, which is a triple bottom line company, which focuses on people, planet, and profit all together. And everything is measurable and at scale. So we work on a completely different sustainability and eco-consciousness level. Now, when you talk about packaging, I think, and specifically about packaging, because there's so many other things in sustainability and eco-consciousness that we do. But in terms of packaging, as far as packaging is concerned, the Body Shop launched the world's first community fair traded plastics. And, it's a big thing because it was happened in India itself. So we work with the waste pickers in South India. We help to collect the entire South Indian waste. We work with them in terms of the lowest levels of, where they are, notorious for, payments and notorious for lack of earnings. And we work with them through a green tech company called Plastics with Change. And this green tech company then helps to get, fair prices for these plastic waste pickers. And all this is then traded freely on the platform, and they can select a vendor, select the buyer who gives them a fair price. And then all the plastics is segregated, funded by the body shop, and put together and shipped out to UK, where we build it into our bottles, and it's shipped out globally everywhere else. So India is actually at the forefront of the world's first fairly traded plastic. So to your question, that's the first thing that we're doing about plastics. We know there is plastics out there. What is important to understand that the plastics, what do we do with the plastic that's already there? So first thing is stop virgin plastic, and second is try to work responsibly with the plastics that is there. Another thing that I would like to say that whatever that we do, environment and communities are very tightly entrenched. So another way that we look at it is if we do plastics and recycling, there also has to be a positive social impact on the people. And to that extent, the waste pickers in South India are being very, very positively impacted. They're getting a fair price. They're getting nutrition, financial ability, education. They're becoming plastic engineers.
Sure.
And again, reinvesting back into eco-conscious methods. So that's one of the things. And of course, as we've talked about stores, all our stores are made of recyclable materials and so on and so forth, and recycled plastics. Globally, we've started a refill program, which is when people bring back their empties and refill it. In India, of course, the compliance rules are different. So we have our repeat return recycle program within the stores. And it's interesting when you said that, how do you do with all the plastics that's created? So across our 200 plus stores, we work with plastic green tech companies which come and collect the plastics from us, and then they recycle it back for us. So it's a very, very advanced technology where they collect the plastics from us. They have systems to measure the plastic. It's measurable and scalable.
So I think it's very good to know that we are shipping out waste from India to the other countries.
Absolutely. So that's one big thing, yeah.
Sure. Pushkaraj, coming to you, if you look at the global vegan cosmetic market, it's scheduled to grow from $16 billion in 2021 to nearly $25 billion in 2028. You have been dealing with a lot of cosmetic materials. How do you see the Indian consumer behaving towards the vegan market? Do you see there is a ability to buy those products? Do you see there is a push for those specific products? What has been your experience from Lakme Lever's perspective?
So I think first I'd like to challenge some of these numbers, right? If you look at carbon emissions per capita, India is below 2, right? The US is at 15.
Yeah.
UAE is at close to 20. China is about 8, right? So I think there is a certain embedded way of life which is more sustainable, and Indians know it. I mean, today maybe we have lost touch with it, but Indians know it really well. So I think first is that. And I think when I look at our consumers, they are willing to pay a premium for anything where they get value. The value can come from in the form of a added benefit. It could come in the form of, just making me feel better delivery. But if there is no logic in that sustainability or in anything, our consumer at whatever level is not willing to pay a premium for it, right? Having said that, I think, when we look at options which are vegan, biodegradable, they don't have sulfates, parabens, right? Our consumers understand the logic of it, and therefore they are willing to pay a premium for it. Single-use plastic, I think they understand the logic of it. So I think as long as you can educate and explain to the consumer, they can see through it and they are willing to pay a premium. So about a few years ago, we went paperless in our operations. Sure. And our consumers really appreciated it, right? Because, and actually it works well on the P&L as well, right? So I just think sustainability will sustain if it works for the P&L from a business point of view, right? So it either gets you better top line, so a consumer is paying more premium or more consumers are coming, or it cuts cost. And from a consumer logic, as long as there is an added value which they can see, touch, feel, they are willing to pay a premium for it.
Sure, thanks. Abhishek, coming to you, you have been dealing in the real estate. Do you see there's a market for green buildings? You make a lot of investments on green buildings which are environmentally sustainable and that requires a lot of initial capex. Do you think there's a market for green buildings in India?
Well, I believe I agree with Sanjeev and a couple of more panelists that we have not reached that stage of the consumers actually ready to pay a big premium So that percolates down to the retailer and then obviously the developer. Because if the retailer is not able to make an extra profit, why would he pay a premium on something like a premium infrastructure or a building that has cost a developer more than normal to build? So I think that it will take time. Rightly said, by 2030, we are going to be 30% dependent on the Gen Z population for consumption. So the Gen Z is seeing things differently than the millennials, and so I think they are going to be more cautious. They'll definitely want to have a feel-good factor about consuming something which is more economic, eco-friendly. And I think good initiatives have already been starting. Like for the real estate industry, it's the government's initiative of giving extra FAR. So they give you extra building rights for you to choose to be a green building. And that kind of encourages a lot of developers to go into making more sustainable buildings. So we are looking at many factors like waste management, like DGU classes, energy efficiency, recycling the water into air conditioning, flushing, and landscaping. So we are doing these to get to a level where we can get an extra FAR. But then that is a simple path. There is also a rating which goes beyond that, which is actually more expensive, which gives you much more benefits in terms of energy efficiency and sustainability. So for that, we need to be dependent on the retailers. Will they actually pay us a premium if they want to select a mall which is green versus a mall which is a normal mall? So I don't think we've reached at that level yet, but it's great to see that the conversation has begun. I mean, I think 5 years or 7 years before, we wouldn't have had panels here discussing this and really deliberating on this. So, yeah, I think we will get there.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Shah, coming to you, you are one of the biggest consumers of the retail space, and the way Abhishek picked up, he's looking forward to the retailers in terms of sharing the booty as well, So, in your experience of Trent and multiple other stores, how do you think we can get an equitable or a sustainable model that we can support the green buildings as well as profitable for the retailer as well? So it has to be a win-win situation for both of you. So what are the things that you feel can help both the places?
As a Trent, we look at this initiative as a supportive in nature, but usually it goes like that. Organized retail growth, if you look at, with respect to the inflation, we are not much up. And usually what happens is, as a retailer, we look at it, what business we can do, and our affordability and what profit we can make. But definitely one can create I'm getting a benefit out of it and we try to do some marketing out of it and do the better business, we can support this type of things. It's nothing that if a green lit building is made and we are saving the power and win-win situation is created for the long term, then this is benefit to us.
Sure, and you would be more than willing to share the benefits.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, every company is trying to someplace. They started the things on this. It's like a journey. It's nothing that completed or something like that. Like that, we try to measure how much garment is traveled overall from the sourcing to the end customer. And we have found that when we decentralize our distribution, it's a great saving. So like all the trucks have changed to CNC now. We are looking at electric trucks. This type of initiatives are there. We try to do all the warehouse with the solar panel to save the electricity. And I think there is the energy conservation things for a long time, like in last 20 years, people are trying to do. And these initiatives have to be continuously, we have to do it.
Sure. So I think, we'll be more than happy to address any concerns or questions which the audiences may have, Yeah, so I think everyone is convinced that we are going the sustainable way. So thank you all the panelists for your time. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot to the audience as well.